Hey, what's up guys, Alex here. Thank you for checking this video and welcome to the lesson number 5 of the series of tutorial on how to build a premium theme for WordPress. Welcome again. In this tutorial, we're going to take a look on how to populate properly the administration section that we started the lesson before, and how to handle all the options that we want to give the user the ability to edit in our admin section. So if we access the design file and we take a look at the sidebar section here, you will notice that we have a bunch of custom options, especially in the top area here. We have an image, name, a full name, a subsection, maybe a subtitle, and then some icons for social networks. So what we want to do today, we want to give the ability to the user to customize this entire area. So we're going to start handling multiple strings for name, first name and last name. We're going to handle a substring for the subtitle, and then we're going to handle whatever social media icon the user wants to show. So let's get started. Let's access our code editor, and here pretty much what we have to do, we have to add more settings fields because we already set the actual settings group that we're going to use. Basically all these custom fields that are first name, last name, Twitter handler, Facebook handler, whatever, are going to store all inside this sunset settings group. So we have to create a number of settings for each single field that we want to save. So right now we have just the first name. Now I want to register another settings, register underscore setting, singular. And I'm going to use the same exact group because I don't want to register another setting to a different group. I mean, I could do that, but it means that the field that I want to register inside the database has to be part of a completely different section. So I can register another section group, maybe for another page. But for now, because all the fields belong to the same section, I'm going to use the same sunset setting group. I'm going to call it last name. After this, I don't have to add another section. I don't have to create another settings section. I can store all the fields, also these other fields, the last name, inside the same section. And in this way, indicating the same section and the same page, we can render all the fields we just one single call, the call that we activated in the previous lesson, the do settings section, to just calling one page to render all the fields that are linked to that page. Moving forward, instead of creating another field, even if I create an actual another settings, instead of creating another field, I can reuse the same callback function to print another input field with the same callback function, because this input field basically is kind of the same first name as last name. I could put all together, but I want to keep it separated just to show you how to handle multiple input fields with the same functions. So what I could do, I could just space and pretty much duplicate this entire HTML input field, and here the name has to be exactly the same parameter that we specified at a second attribute inside the register settings. So it was first name, the second one is last name. Let's change it with last name, the placeholder last name, and here I have to, as I did before, duplicate these and retrieve the option last name instead of first name. And let's change the variable in last name, copy this, paste it here, save it. Let's go take a look in our administration panel, refresh it, and now as you can see I have two fields, the first name field and the last name field. And this one, it doesn't make sense having the first name here. So let's go back in our text editor and let's change the settings field name, the settings field title, into full name. Let's go back, refresh, and now we have full name. It makes sense. So let's write Alex Dude as a save changes, And as you can see, automatically I just added like manually another field and another input, and all the editing that we did, everything we created in the previous lesson is automatically working. So all these options are being saved correctly. If I refresh the page, everything is here, and now we can easily keep going by building the other section that we want. So now I have to create another settings field option because I want a completely different section to store my Twitter account. For example, I want here written Twitter handler, Facebook handler, Google Plus handler, so on. And I don't want everything to be stored in the same section. So I have to create another field to store those settings. So let's reuse the same function, add underscore settings field, and as usual the string ID that has to be unique, sidebar Twitter, full name Twitter handler. The callback, I want to use another callback to call another function and handle the printing of my custom fields, my custom inputs. So I want to use the sunset sidebar Twitter. The page has to be exactly the same page as it was before, and the option group, the section group, has to be exactly the same as the previous one, and we don't need to pass any arguments in here. Let's copy these, semicolon, and now we can create another function with the same name that we decided here, no options, and we can output pretty much the same thing. So let's, to save some time, copy this section, paste it here, and let's call this variable Twitter, get option, Twitter handler, let's replace Twitter at Twitter handler. And now, of course, because it's a completely different option, we have to do the same. We have to register another settings in the same settings group, but with another attribute. So here we decided Twitter handler. Let's register the same Twitter handler. Save it, refresh it. Let's go in the administration page, refresh it, and now we have our Twitter handler with the section here. Let's do the same for all the other social media networks that we're interested into. And that's it. I created all the settings, I register all the settings for all the social media that I want. In my case, just Twitter, Facebook, Google+. I registered a settings field for each social media handler that I need. And then I created a single callback function for each social media that I want to print, the input field. So let's save it. Let's go back in our administration panel, refresh it, and now I have the list of social media. Now, of course, everything works. I can save all my stuff. So my Twitter handler, for example, @cat, my Facebook, @cat, Google handler, I don't remember, but it should be @cat. Let's save it just as a test. So here, I wanna spend a few minutes just to talk about sanitization. So if you notice here, we never specified any sanitization option in the register settings because WordPress automatically handles this stuff like security stuff because of the way we created this form, we created this option with the settings API. We don't have to worry about this, but could happen, as I said in the previous lesson, that sometimes the user inputs something that we don't really want. For example, for the Twitter handler, most of the time the user inputs the Twitter handle with the @ option because it's the kind of like the Twitter name, it's how you refer a Twitter name. But what if we don't want this? What if even if the user inputs this special character, the @ character, we want to completely remove it just for security option, and we don't want to risk that maybe a user inputs it, another user doesn't, and then our front end is not going to work because sometimes we have an @ symbol, sometimes we don't. So let's remove these options completely and just strip away this special character. If the user inputs this special character, just completely remove it from the string, and let's automatically save his Twitter handler without the add character. To do that, we have to create a callback function to sanitize our options. So let's go in the section where we recorded the register settings for the Twitter handler, and as a third parameter, we have to specify the name of a function that we want to use to sanitize. So let's, as usual, in a single quote, sunset sanitize Twitter handler. Let's go down here and let's create another section divided by a comment. Sanitization settings. Let's copy this option here and let's call function. The name of the function that we specified, brackets. Before writing the function of removing all the options inside the brackets of our function, we have to specify a unique variable that is gonna automatically pass whatever value is input in that specific field. So if I write input, basically this input variable is gonna be whatever value the user inputs inside this field. So automatically WordPress is gonna pass for us that specific input inside this sanitization function. And now we can use this input to do whatever we want, to sanitize, to strip something, and to remove whatever options on whatever character we don't like. So usually, as a standard procedure, we should use a specific function, a pre-built function of WordPress to sanitize a text field. So in this case, I'm gonna create a new variable called output. And this output is equal to sanitize underscore text underscore field. And inside here, I'm gonna put my input, that is the variable passed. And then I'm gonna return the actual output. So at the end of a sanitization function, we don't ever have to echo the output. Never echo, never do this, always return. If we use return, this variable is gonna automatically return inside our register settings, and it's gonna be handled correctly with the field and the input, output, and all the saving settings of WordPress. If we echo this variable, we're gonna create an HTML output within the PHP, and this is gonna break our process. So always return a variable, an array, a parameter, whatever. Always return and never echo it. This sanitize text field is a pre-built function of WordPress that checks for invalid UTF-8 and convert every single character, like special character, an entity into strip tags, into strips tags, remove all the line breaks, tabs, and extra white spaces, and pretty much can handle all the terrible typing that a user can input. So let's take a look on how it works. Let's go back in our administration panel, let's refresh it. And if I write here, like kind of space, I can write a href equal test. This is a pretty terrible Twitter handle, but it's a test to let you know what happens if I save. As you can see, everything gets stripped out. So you cannot input HTML, you cannot input PHP, you cannot input special characters. So everything gets safely stripped out. Now what we have to do, we have to strip another special character. There is this @ character. We have to check for the @ character and just remove it. To do that, we can use a pretty simple PHP function that is called the string replace. So let's reuse output again, and output is going to be equal to string underscore replace, and we're going to search for the @ symbol, and we're going to replace the @ symbol with empty, and the object, the variable that we want to check, is actually output. So if you don't know anything about PHP, what I did here could result a little bit confusing, but it's not really confusing. Basically, I'm using the same variable and I'm saying that this variable has to be equal to the same variable here, that in my case is @alecad, but without the @ symbol. So I'm using this string replace function from PHP to search the @ and replace it with an empty value, with nothing, basically just remove it. And then I'm resaving all these process inside the same variable. I'm not creating another variable. PHP is really smart in handling this. He knows that if I'm using this variable, he's not gonna save or override anything until this process is over. So I can use the same output, the same variable name, in my case output, and return it safely. So let's save. Let's go back in our administration panel. Let's save the changes again. And as you can see here, the @ disappeared. If I put it again and I save again, automatically it disappears. And this is great. This is totally what we wanted. If we want to extend a little bit this section, maybe we want to give the user a little bit of insight or a little bit like tips, a guide on how to properly write the Twitter handler here or the other social media, we can use the pre-built style of WordPress for the administration area. So if we go into Twitter here and in the echo of my Twitter function callback, I can write a paragraph section with a class description, close the paragraph, and then inside the description we can write simply input your Twitter username without the @ character. So at least the user will know that even if he inputs the @ character and it disappears after it saves, is not a mistake, because we are requiring the Twitter name absolutely without the @ symbol, the @ character. So let's go back, refresh it, and let's check. And as you can see here, we have exactly the same style as it is in the settings page, the pre-made style of WordPress. This is really useful to maintain a style, especially if we are doing a theme from scratch, a premium theme from scratch for the first time. We have to understand first how it works standard WordPress theme customization, and how we can create something that it's like consistent and properly for WordPress before customizing heavily all the rest. In the next lesson, we're going to take a look on how to create a custom section for our image, how to call dynamically the WordPress built-in media uploader, and how to dynamically upload a new picture and save it as a custom profile picture. So also for today's lesson is pretty much it. I hope you enjoyed. Please play with this section and try to create as many handlers, as many social media handlers as possible, as many as you want. And if you want, try to integrate all the functions as much as possible into single functions, like to streamline all the process, to streamline the code and avoid to have a massive, huge file. If you enjoyed, as usual, please give it a thumbs up or subscribe to my channel. And if you want, you can check also these other two series that I did previously, the WordPress 101 for beginner developers and the Alecad crash course to learn Sass in few lessons. And if you really like what I'm doing, please spend a few minutes just to check this page, the support me page in my website, and check how you can support me and my channel and help me to create better videos and better content. So thank you again, and until next lesson, as usual, happy coding!